And welcome back to Learn Linux TV, and also welcome back to the Linux Crash Course series. In this series, we go over one very important topic around Linux, one video at a time. And unless I mention otherwise, each video in this series is completely standalone. In today's video, what we're going to do is talk about path. And no, I'm not talking about the path to enlightenment, although if you know about the path to enlightenment and you have some tips, definitely let me know. But no, it's not about that. There's actually a path variable in your Linux shell, and that path variable actually includes a listing of directories that are important, directories that include binaries or scripts that you can run, and that's actually what makes or breaks your ability to run a command by default from a particular directory. So we're going to take a look at that. Now before we do, I just need to take a moment to mention the sponsor for today's video, which is Linode. If you haven't already heard of Linode, well, they're a Linux-focused cloud server provider. And with their platform, you can spin up your very own Linux server in mere minutes. And considering that there's over 40 videos in this series as of recording time, with many more coming, Linode is a great service that you could use for spinning up test servers, and you could use those test servers to go along with the various tutorials that are available on this channel. And by using the URL that you see on the screen right now, that'll get you $100 in free credit towards your new account, and that credit is good for up to 60 days. And by using that URL, you're actually supporting Learn Linux TV, and I'd greatly appreciate that. And their platform is great for more than just spinning up test servers. Linode is the real deal when it comes to providing cloud computing resources. You could literally run your entire business on Linode, or you could use it to do something fun like spinning up a Minecraft server so you and your friends can build a world online together. The only limit is your imagination, so definitely check them out. Thank you so much to Linode yet again for sponsoring another episode of the Linux Crash Course series. I really appreciate that. Now, the concept of a path in your shell is a very important concept, so this video is actually going to be one of the easier videos in this series, but it's also going to be one of the more important ones, so I definitely want you guys to pay very special attention to this because path is really important, in fact, critical to your shell and how you run programs. So let's go ahead and dive in, and I'll tell you all about it. So here I am on my Linux workstation, and I'm ready to show you guys all about path and what it represents. But I think a fun way to understand just how important path is to imagine a world where we don't actually have it. So to show you just how useful path is, I'd like to take you to an alternate universe where the concept of path was never invented. And as part of that, I'll run some commands in my terminal, and you should start to see immediately that the commands that I'm going to be running are way more complicated than they need to be. So let's warp into that alternate universe where path was never invented and see what that looks like. Alright, so what I'm going to do in this example here is I'm going to use the find command to find a file on my file system. I had a notes file that I saved earlier, and I just have no idea where I saved it. Now, the first thing I should probably do is see whether or not that file is in my current working directory. I'm sure you're already familiar with the ls command, so I'll use the ls command to see if that file is right here in my home directory. So just like any Linux administrator, what I'll do is run ls, and in case you didn't already know, that's /user. User is actually abbreviated, so it's /usr/bin, and then /ls. And I'll also use the options -L and -H as well. And I have two directories here, but I don't have my notes file, so where exactly did I save that? Well, I don't know. I think what I should do right now is use the find command to find that file. That would be a good way to do it. So I'll type /usr/bin and then /find. I want to look in my current working directory, so I'll type a period here for that. I want to return results only for files, so I'll use -type and then F for files. I am not interested in directories. I know it's a file, so I'll search for files. And for the name, I know that I called it notes.txt. So this should actually tell me where that file is located. So I'll press enter. Oh, it's right there in my documents directory. I probably should have known that. Maybe I'm just tired or something. Anyway, what I want to do is add another note to that file. So let's open it up in an editor. So I'll type /user/bin and then nano. Then I'll type the path to where that particular file is located. So I'll just open this up in an editor and hold on a minute. This is way too complicated. Do I really have to type /user/bin in the front of every single command? That just seems overly redundant and even a little bit tedious. There has to be a better way. Well, actually, there is, and that's what path allows us to do. Path allows us to shorten commands. It's literally the reason why we could type nano, find, ls, commands like those without typing the path to those commands. We could just type the name of those commands. That makes everything a lot easier. And what path actually is a variable. And just like any other variable, we can see the contents of the path variable by using the echo command. And I'll type $path. Path is in all caps in this case. And I'll press enter. And check that out. Path is actually a list of directories that's separated by a colon. So anytime you run any command on the Linux shell, it's going to check each of these directories for a command or a script with that name. And when it does that, it'll look in /user/local/bin, also /user/bin/bin, and so on. So those are the directories that the shell is going to check anytime you run a command. If there's a matching command that matches the name that you've typed within one of those directories, it's going to run it. If not, it's going to tell you that the command is not found. Now, as a quick example of this, I'm going to write a script. It's going to be a very simple script. I'm not going to go over bash scripting in this particular episode, but I think a script would be a great idea. So what I'll do is create a new command or a new script. And what I'll do is I'll just name it mycmd. Simple enough. Now to start off the script, I'll type the usual shebang at the top right here. And I'm going to make this extremely simple. So what I'll do is echo hello world. Just like that. That's the entire script. So I'll save the file. I'll exit out. I'll also mark that executable as well. And as you can see, we have mycmd right there. Now for fun, what I'm going to do is move mycmd into the documents directory. And let's go ahead and execute the command. Again, I called it mycmd, so let's run it. And I get command not found. Now that actually makes sense. I moved it into my documents directory, so I'm literally referring to a script that isn't in my local working directory here. That's why I moved it into the documents directory, just to make sure that it's out of the way, and we got a command not found error message, which we did. So what I'll do is actually move that back to my current working directory. I'm in my home directory right now. I'll just move it here. And there it is. So now that I have that script in my current working directory, let's see if we can run it now. Still, command not found. That's weird. It's absolutely right there. What's going on? Well, when we checked out the contents of the path variable, we saw that user local bin is one of the folders that is referenced right here. So what I'm going to do is move mycmd into /user/local/bin. Now, because that's actually a protected directory that I don't have ownership of, I will need to use root or sudo in order to do this. So let's move it in there. All right, so let's just check the contents of that directory. You can see that mycmd is inside that directory. Now, currently, I'm in my home directory, but check this out. I'm now able to run the command. Why am I able to run it now? Well, because I moved it into a directory that's within my path. And as you can see, it works. Now, similarly, if I was to move that out of user local bin, let's say I want to move that into the user bin directory. And again, I'm going to need sudo. Even I forget that from time to time. And there's a lot of files in user bin, so I'm going to grep for the name of the file that I've saved there. And we can see that it's right there. We're not always going to have colorized output, but given that we have X's in the permission string, we know that it's executable. Anyway, even though I moved it to a different directory, it still works. So I moved it from user local bin to user bin. And the reason why that works is because both of those directories were actually a part of my path. But what's interesting here is that my home directory is not. So let's go ahead and move that script back to my home directory then. I'll move it right here. Now, since my home directory is not a part of my own path, that's actually why I can't do this. It doesn't work. No such file or directory, which might be misleading to some of you because it's absolutely there, but I can't run it. Actually, I can run it. What I could do is type dot and then / and then the name of the script. What this is actually telling the command line to do is run mycmd, which is located in my current working directory. That's what the period means. A single period is going to represent your current working directory. So I'm telling my shell to look at my current working directory for a script or a program, basically, that's named mycmd. And it is present in my current working directory, so what's going to happen here? It works. So that's actually how you run something that's not within your path. Since my home directory, which is where I am right now, since that's not located in my path, it's not going to recognize the command simply by its name. But again, if I wanted to run a command or a script or something like that, I can type the full path to that particular command or script, and that'll work just fine. So typing ./mycmd is pretty much the same thing as typing /home, /j in my case, mycmd. I'm typing the full path to that command. It works just fine. Now, if you're curious, by the way, where a command is located, if you type which and then the name of the command, in this case, ls is /user/bin/ls. I could also run that by typing /user/bin/ls just like that. But it's actually a lot easier to type simply ls. Now, as an aside, you'll notice that the output is different when I type ls as compared to typing /user/bin/ls. That actually has to do with aliases that's outside the scope of this video, but you could check out the aliases video I've done that'll go over that. So I won't go into any detail about that, but yes, I know the output is different and it's supposed to be, but we're going to ignore that for now. Now, you might be wondering, why is the home directory not a part of path? Well, actually, that's a good thing. We really don't want to have commands and scripts run directly from our home directory unless we explicitly call the script. If somebody was to commandeer their way into our system, the ability to run programs from just about everywhere would actually work against us, because that would give that person privileges to run commands themselves from any directory. So if they had a script that they loaded on your system, or something else like that, then that's going to be a very bad day. But by limiting where commands can be run from, that actually increases security. Most of the directories in our path, which in the case of Debian, which is what I'm using right here, these directories are part of the default path. So scripts and programs can be run from any one of these directories. But my home directory is not there, which is why simply typing mycmd without the period and / in front of it, that didn't work. But how do you go about actually adding something to your path? Well, let's take a look at that. And what I want to do in particular is actually enable the ability to run commands from my home directory, but not the root of my home directory. What I want to do instead is actually create a directory in my home directory called bin. And this is very common. You'll probably see this a lot in the real world. An experienced Linux administrator might actually create a directory named bin in their home directory, and inside that directory would be a bunch of scripts and helpful programs and things like that. Again, that's very common. It's not required, it's just something that generally happens in the real world. And actually what I'll do is move my script into that bin directory, which is where it is now. However, that still doesn't fix our problem that the script isn't recognized. No such file or directory. Now, for some of you, creating the bin directory and moving the script into that directory, that might actually work just fine. Some distributions actually include the bin directory in your home directory as part of your path. Now, in my case, in the case of Debian, it's not by default added to path, so the bin directory in my home directory is not recognized as a directory from which I can run commands. So what I'll do is add the bin directory that I've just created to my path right now. Let's see what that looks like. So what I'll do is I'll create a new variable named path. And when we create variables, if you didn't already know, we don't need the $. We only need the $sign when we refer to a variable that's already been created. But when we create a variable, we'll leave the $sign out of it. Anyway, the new variable is going to be called path, and I'll set that equal to something, but before I do, I just want to mention we already have a variable named path. So by creating a new one with the same name, that's going to override the one that exists. However, what I don't want to do is lose the directories that are currently in my path. I want to retain those, but also add a new directory. I don't want this new directory that I'm about to add to replace all the other ones. That would make the shell act all kinds of ways that are weird, so we definitely don't want that. But a quick and easy way to solve this problem is we could actually set the new path variable to be equal to the current path variable. Again, when we create a variable, we don't need the dollar symbol, but we do need it when we refer to an existing variable. So in this case, the new variable is going to be exactly the same as the path variable that already exists. However, what I'm going to do before I press enter is add another colon, tilde, and then slash, and then bin, just like that. So putting this all together, I'm going to grab everything that's already included in the path variable, the one that already exists, and I'm going to add the bin directory in my home directory to that existing path, and the new path variable is going to be equal to the old one plus the new directory that I'm adding. And what you could also do is add another directory, another one, and so on. You could add as many as you would like to add. But for me, I think this is actually fine. So I'll press enter. And if I echo the contents of the path variable here, we can see /home/j/bin is there at the end. So I was successfully able to add a new directory to my path, which also means my CMD by itself is going to work. And when I type which mycmd, you can see that it's located in my bin directory, just like it's supposed to be. So by adding the bin directory that I've just created in my home directory to my path, then any script or program that I save within that directory is a program or script that I can run from the command line regardless of where I happen to be. For example, I can go all the way into the Etsy directory. It doesn't really matter. And the command still works because the shell is now going to check my bin directory for scripts and commands. And you know what? The bin directory would not be a bad directory to create on your end, but also be a good thing to add to your path as well. But one issue with this is that when you close the terminal, then the path variable is going to return to normal. The next time you open a terminal, it's just going to be back to the way it was without the bin directory. So if you want to make that stick, here's how you do that. You can bring up a text editor, and there's a special file that we can edit in our home directory. In the case of bash, it's .bashrc. That's the configuration file for bash itself. And depending on your distribution, it'll probably look a lot different. Every distribution maintains their own bashrc file. But anyway, this file is read every single time we open a shell. So basically what I could do is add that same command that I just used to add bin to my path. I can add that right here. And again, the terminal is going to read this file every time it opens, and it's going to execute whatever code I put in here to add it to my path. Now, what I'm going to do is take this a step further, though. I'm going to write an if statement, and you don't have to worry too much about what I'm doing as far as scripting is concerned. I have dedicated videos that are all about scripting, actually. But anyway, what I could do is test for the existence of a directory. And what I want to do is check and see if the bin directory exists in my home directory. So then I'll add a closing bracket right here. And what this is going to do so far is it's going to execute the statement that I'm about to type only if the bin directory actually exists. So again, I'm testing for the existence of a directory, and if it's found, I want it to do something. And more specifically, I'm going to have it run the exact same thing. And then I'll type if backwards to close the if statement. Now the reason why I'm doing it like this is because if for some reason your bin directory doesn't exist, then this is just going to error out every single time you open a terminal. But by adding an if statement, then what's going to happen is the shell is going to test for the existence of this directory first, and if it's found, it's going to add it to the path. If it's not found, well, then the if statement proves false and nothing gets executed at all. So if you decide in the future that you don't want to have a bin directory anymore, then you don't have to worry about removing this. And then later on, if you decide to have a bin directory again, then it's going to be recognized. Anyway, I'll save this file, Control O and then Enter, and then Control X. And that should do it. Now with every terminal that I open, I'll have that folder as part of my path. And as a result of that, it'll recognize commands that I might have saved inside that folder. Now, if nothing else, you should now understand how path plays a role in how you execute commands on the Linux command line. It's an important concept, but thankfully, it's really not all that difficult. It's one of those that might seem difficult when you're just starting out, but hopefully this video made it easy for you. So there you go. I hope this video was helpful in teaching you guys all about path on your Linux shell. It's a very important concept, something that I recommend you pay special attention to. It'll definitely come in handy, I can guarantee it. Anyway, thank you so much for checking out this episode of the Linux Crash Course series. I really appreciate it. There's going to be additional episodes coming very soon, and I can't wait for you guys to see these episodes, so definitely subscribe so you'll be the first to see these as soon as I have them uploaded. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you again very soon.